Welcome to the Plank Partners Candid Conversations, where we delve into the ins and outs of mentorship by speaking with industry leaders and the mentees whose careers they help to guide. Find out how the mentoring relationship impacts them personally and professionally through their troubles and triumphs, and how you can apply their learning and insight into your own success. I'm Sunny Frank-Spiller, a member of the Plank Center's Emerging Leaders Committee, and I'm joined today by public relations icon John Onoda, who has led communications for such companies as Charles Schwab, Visa USA, General Motors, and Levi Strauss. I'd also like to welcome Lori Teranishi, who worked for John at Visa and refers to him as the Yoda of PR. She'll give us some insights into their mentoring relationship. Lori also worked for VPG, a boutique law firm providing strategic communications counsel, before founding her firm, IQ360, where, ironically, John now works for her. This is definitely a mentor-mentee relationship that has developed into a collaboration, and I can't wait to hear how it started and gain insights from both of you for our listeners. So, let's get started. In a recent presentation, Lori advised that mentors, coaches, and trusted advisors can make all the difference in both your professional and personal lives. How has your relationship as mutual mentors made a difference in your professional lives?
I've had the benefit of having several mentors. Probably the most significant in my life has been Alfred Geduldig, who's in his 80s, and he and I are still in touch, and we've been continuously in communication for over 30 years.
From my end, I mean, you can see why I always call John my sensei, the Japanese word for teacher. He is the reason why we call him the Yoda. His last name's Onoda, so Yoda. The Yoda of our industry is that, he actually taught me by example.
But a mentor is helping you sort of manage your life and your work together, and there's always ups and downs in both sides.
When I first worked for John, when he joined as Chief Communications Officer of Visa, I was shaking in my boots every time I had to talk to him because he was just so smart, and I was intimidated by him. And, I just wanted to do my very best.
The actual mentoring experience, I should emphasize, it's not one way where you sit on a mountaintop and you talk to your mentee. It's a two-way relationship, and you're learning a lot about that person and about other perspectives and new kinds of challenges.
But the one thing I would say for anyone out there who's thinking about mentorship and how they look over the trajectory of their careers is to really try to put in some discretionary effort. If you just put in a little bit more effort, staying a little later at work, getting involved in the community, getting involved in committees in your workplace, things that you aren't required to do, you will see that mentors notice that, and they want to be around people and help people that they see putting in that effort. And you become a mentor magnet.
You've got to find a way to differentiate yourself and demonstrate that you have potential that needs to be developed. And as Lori said earlier, that takes discretionary effort. If you just go class to class and just do what all the other students are doing, you are not going to stand out, and no mentor can identify you to even try to help you.
Because people like us, we see a lot of people out in the workplace, and we decide where we want to spend our time. And we spend our time with the people we think are spending their own time developing themselves.
When you know your mentee and you know their strengths and interests, if your mentor is older and sort of has a broader network, they're aware of a lot more trends and things going on than the mentee is. And they'll say, like, you should meet this person. You should go to the city, tell them I sent you, and go have lunch with this person, or go to this event, or go onto LinkedIn and make these sorts of posts and make sure these people see it, and then try to use that to engage them in an ongoing, at least online conversation.
Strive to be a mentor to others, but John has been my mentor, guiding me through all sorts of professional and personal challenges and opportunities, actually. So it's been one of the most rewarding relationships of my life.
In that same presentation I mentioned earlier, Lori said, "To achieve great things, you must not let failure deter you because you're going to fail a lot." How has your mentoring relationship helped you recover from what you considered a failure?
You know, when I first started working for John, I failed a lot, and he told me that, for example, that I apologized too much. It was the way I was raised to apologize a lot.
I think mentors can be very helpful in situations of failure. And in this fast-paced world, when you are trying to be world-class, be at the forefront of things, you're going to have more failure than most people who just want to sit around and do the same thing every day.
He told me I wasn't enough of a risk taker, also true. And so in the formative years of my career, you know, I had John really pushing me and giving me assignments that made me fail. So
sometimes you're going to have to try to do something that is outside your scope of experience or even competency, but you've got to try because the situation demands it.
for example, we had a very difficult legal situation come up, and John asked me to write a position paper for the CEO, and I sweated every word. And 3 hours after he gave me the assignment, which was quite time sensitive, he came in my office and he threw down a memo and said, you know, I just did this because you took too long. And I was mortified, you know, but it taught me that, look, you just have to do it, trust in what you do, and give him something.
What mentors can do is provide a perspective on failure. In a way, failure isn't failure because you've got to try and then you'll learn what works and what doesn't.
You know, I think I also was able to adopt that mindset because as I worked more and more with John, I realized that we could fail and he wouldn't penalize us for it. So,
and you might fail and you might beat yourself up, and a good mentor will come and say, no, you didn't fail. You did the right thing, which is always the most important thing, and you learned X, Y, and Z.
It's also up to the leaders of a group, or if you eventually manage people, that you also create this environment of trust and where people know they can take risks and not be penalized if they don't hit the mark the first time. And John was that kind of leader for me and our group.
There's all kinds of lessons and growth associated with failure. And you know, when you have failed and you've got a pie in your face, it's very hard to like get the pie out of your eyes and see the big picture. But a mentor sort of standing off to the side saying, nah, you're okay. You know, it was kind of funny what you did. Pick yourself up, go on to the next thing, and you know, have a drink at night. That's what a mentor does.
And how has your mentoring relationship provided advice that helped you navigate through a tough professional challenge?
I think in tough times, mentorship can provide a lot of sort of psychological and emotional support.
One of the toughest assignments that I was faced with recently was being asked by the governor of the state of Hawaii to come in and help with the COVID crisis. And this was early days. Hawaii was impacted more than most by COVID because our tourism economy, you know, our economy is so dependent on tourism. And John was the first person I called. He helped me craft a strategy that ultimately helped the state navigate through the economic and health challenges.
When I was at General Motors and I was heading up communications there, I moved to Detroit from the San Francisco Bay Area with my wife and two children who were both in middle school. And the job was very challenging for me. It was a big job. It was really tough. But it was even more difficult for my family because a mixed race family moving from the Bay Area to Detroit, from one sort of culture to a very different kind of culture, did not sit well with my family. And there were a lot of stresses. And so at one point I decided I had to move back to the Bay Area. And it was really hard decision. It was, you know, General Motors was #1 on Fortune 500, and I was in a very high visibility role. And I'd recruited people from around the country to move to Detroit and they wanted to be on my team. And I had felt a lot of loyalty to them. And so it just felt like an awful decision for me to suddenly say, Detroit didn't work. I'm heading back to California and leaving these people in Detroit to a new administration, and who knew what would happen to them, how they would be treated under a new boss, etc. And so I felt pretty horrible about it. And I went to a couple of my mentors and just ran the situation by them. And both of them said, you've got to go. One of them said, you need a job where you can have breakfast every morning with your family and be home by dinner, because your family needs to heal and get back together again. And I can't tell you the amount of stress that went off my shoulders.
Just say that mentorship is a lot about building your personal network and distinguishing yourself as someone who other people can come to for advice and insights. And then when you need help or you need a perspective, they're there for you too.
That's, I think, the sort of situation where good mentors really step up and add value.
Building your network and keeping in touch with people. LinkedIn makes it really easy today. And, just letting people know you care about them, you're interested in them. I think that is actually a big foundation for mentorship.
Both of you have worked on the agency and corporate sides of the business. Putting your corporate hat on, what did you find lacking in your agency partners, and how can emerging agency leaders fill in that gap?
My advice is really, whether it's agency or on the corporate side, that people really do try to develop these business skills, not look at yourself as a communicator, look at yourself as someone who's trying to help whatever organization you're in solve their challenges.
Very few people in my experience, and I've talked to a lot of agency people and corporate staffs as a speaker, they focus on doing their job, but they don't focus on their career. They don't focus on managing their career. They don't even know where they could go with their career.
But when you look at the great people in our industry, many of them, almost all of them, have been in the corporate seats as well as the agency seats. So, and they go back and forth. I mean, look at Corey DeBrawa at Burson, who was at Google before. So, I think that it's a better construct in my mind to look at what distinguishes those leaders. And those leaders seize the moment at every step in their careers to acquire skills that help them to be better business people.
So there's this really vibrant and powerful ecosystem that you can tap into to manage your career over decades, over your entire career. And
so for me, I always took every opportunity I could to acquire every skill I could, even though sometimes I think to some it would seem like weird moves in a career. They were very, very uncomfortable positions for me, all of them. But what I learned is that, I could acquire skills that would help me counsel my clients today much better. So, I think that if you can, you should try to work on both sides of the equation, because I think you just get a perspective that can be very valuable, no matter where you're sitting.
What would you say is the biggest professional challenge communicators face today, and how has your mentoring relationship helped you face that challenge?
I think profession is challenged by the speed of events, just the speed the world is moving at now, and the sort of scope of what communications now entails.
AI probably poses the biggest challenge for people in our profession who aren't willing to flex and grow and have this continuous learning mindset. It can be scary on one hand because it will displace portions of our job.
Today, you have to deal with political effects, cultural things, and shareholder activism. Litigation is always lurking around the corner. And then you have the distorting effects of social media and then deep fake technology. And now it's on steroids with AI. And we have to take all of that in simultaneously.
However, for the people that have critical thinking skills, who think like business people, who are able to quickly enter any situation and assess, what's important and where we have to go. That's all of the counseling, the strategic human intelligence part of the equation. And if we can continue to develop those skills as communicators, we're going to win.
And yet we're going to get called on the carpet by our clients or our bosses to like, why didn't you manage this? And I don't know what the answer is. Like, I'm trying, boss, but this AI thing is putting out 1,000 deep fakes per second. And like, what do you think I can do?
There's a huge opportunity with all the changes John mentioned in the world for us to really influence the actions that our organizations take if we have better data and we're able to apply it in better ways. And I think that is not just a challenge, but a huge opportunity ahead of us.
You got to be really tough-minded, not just to work, but to deal with your stakeholders and your bosses who are expecting unrealistic results.
We're living in this multi-stakeholder world, and every thing that an organization does has trade-offs between the different stakeholders. It's not, one stakeholder group. Your investors might want you to do something and your employees want you to do another thing. So how do you navigate all that?
Like, no one is born saying, I can do all these things related to a global disaster all by myself. That is not the real world. You need help, you need coaching, you need advisors, people who have, the best experience in the world at addressing a multitude of factors simultaneously. And, it's exciting, but, buckle up.
What are the most important qualities of a leader, and how has your mentoring relationship helped you develop those qualities?
Mom always taught my sister and me that the most important personal characteristics we should have are to have courage and compassion. And John just spoke about how this world is changing, how it's so scary. And I agree with him. AI and climate change and societal inequity, geopolitical instability, all of these things make it very hard to be a leader.
I think there's some similarities between leadership and mentorship in that they are both lifelong journeys. Both require, I think, if you aspire to be really good at it, a lot of empathy.
And there's a lot of courage that I think we need to exhibit in these situations. We have to do the right thing. And there's no playbook in the future for a lot of the situations that are going to arise. So you have to rely on your wits.
There are many, many leadership styles and many, many mentorship styles. And the more you encounter and discuss both and become a trained observer of what people are doing, these different styles. And some will work for you. Some of them you'll have the qualities to be that kind of leader. And some of them you're going to immediately say, no, I don't want to be that kind of leader.
And how do you get your wits? It's doing all the things that we talked about earlier in this discussion. It's creating a network, having all these relationships that you can depend on when you need them. But it's also having a continuous learning sort of mindset.
And so you can't give cookie cutter mentorship advice. You're trying to help this person achieve what they want to achieve. So you have to get your head sort of inside their head and, they think this is the most important things and this is how they prioritize their values and what have you. And so I will give them this advice that fits their internal landscape. So that empathy process, though, is very educational for both the leader and the mentor.
You also have to have compassion. And how do you develop compassion? I mean, some of it is just developed in your childhood and throughout life, but part of it is also spending time in situations and with people that are outside your normal experience.
2 generations past the youngest people in our profession now, I don't know how they think. It takes a lot of effort for me to sort of work my head into their space. I'm much more comfortable and can automatically relate to people my age. But the generational differences are really significant nowadays. So working on your empathy muscle is probably the key to both.
What John has taught me to do, even, even though it's hard and uncomfortable, is really engage with people who are different from you, who have completely different perspectives and you, with those you really fundamentally don't agree with. But it's only in putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations that you can become a better leader and also a better mentor to others.
Wow. What great insights from both of you. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for being kind enough to share your experiences with each other and about your careers. I have thoroughly enjoyed this time together and couldn't be more excited about our candid conversation today. I know that I have learned several things that will serve me well in my career, and I know those watching will agree. Again, thank you, John and Lori, for your time. And for those of you watching, there are more candid conversations from the Planck Center for Leadership and Public Relations on our website. Please let us know how you enjoyed today and join us for insights and discussions with other leaders in the public relations industry.